Alright, sup lads, it's Naritsu the Perv here. We're going to be talking about that gay shit today. We're going to have a fun old time. It's going to be good.
We're going to talk about identity erasure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Identity erasure via the method of traps and knowing Pedantic Romantic the Jews. So it's going to be quite fun. it's going to be quite a fun fucking time.
I'll have to watch that video now.
Yeah, I'll find it and link it to you right now.
There's no way.
Nice in-joke.
Oh shit.
So we're going to talk about a video of Padentic Romantic about how traps don't exist. Very risky to start off your video with erasing a identity. So we see how that plays out.
Yeah, like I know a guy who's cross-dressed before, and it's like I'll have to tell him he doesn't exist.
Yeah. Also, I'll put it in the voice chat. I think this was the video for the Goblin Slayer stuff. I think it was this one, but we'll find out later on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe in next video.
Maybe the next one we'll do Goblins or Jews.
You have the controls again.
Okay, I'll do it. Alright, so here we go. Starting from 2 seconds. Let's go.
So, y'all really had to go and do it again, didn't ya? In the 8th episode of the most popular original anime of the season, a genuinely great show, one of the idols gets her backstory, and we learn that she's transgender. She originally had a guy's name that she strongly rejects, and will insist upon being called by her chosen name if people use it. This is identical to trans people choosing new gender-appropriate names for themselves. She is said to have different junk, i.e. genitals, than the other girls. The cause of her death was a heart attack that she had upon seeing a facial hair growing, right after she insisted that she won't grow up and let her body change. Some people have been unashamed.
Okay, I want to stop here because I very much remember this controversy. There was different conflicting reports about the translation, right?
Yeah.
So there was one, the Crunchyroll translation was that the Crunchyroll translation made it out to be more transgender. There was another translation done by someone that was more along the lines of it wasn't really it wasn't that they wanted to be female, it's just that they looked feminine and they didn't want to lose that femininity because it would affect their job, right? So it wasn't actually a case of gender dysphoria, right? In the sense that it was they wanted to be a woman as it's being portrayed by Padentic Romantic here. So I would have to relook into it again, but I just want it to be on the record that not to take Padentic Romantic's interpretation at their word, because it is conflicted, right? It's a conflicted report of what the actual intentions were. If you go onto the, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think if you went on, the character wikis and stuff, it does state that they are female, I think, or male, one of the two. I think it was either male or female. I can't remember. So I'm not sure. I think that the fact that Pedantic is choosing to, because we have to think about this in the context of at the time, right? When this video came out, the controversy was it was somewhat dying down, but it was still rather hot. I think that choosing to dismiss the other interpretations rather than because they could have just stated, okay, well, it's conflicted, right? Here's my interpretation, but it's just so you know, there are conflicting translations, right? And that would be fair enough. But because Pedantic is choosing to assert their interpretation as the factual one, that has me that gives I have a bit of a problem with that, basically. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this fuckboy doesn't actually understand enough Japanese to be able to even.
I am assuming Pedantic is going off the Crunchyroll interpretation, right, or the Crunchyroll subs, which, from what I understood at the time, were not 100% accurate.
They played fast and loose for years.
So I'm not. Yeah, so I just wanted to make that statement, just so for people watching the video are aware that just don't take Pedantic's word for it. So let's continue. Alright.
unashamedly lying and saying that in the original Japanese it isn't this explicit, when in fact, it's more so. When Lily says, "That was my old name," according to the subtitles, she calls that old name her "steta namae," or name that she threw away. When that conversation of junk comes up, the specific line is, "Ii janeka, tsuite yoga, tsuite nakaroga," which translates to, "It's fine, isn't it? Whether it's attached or not."
Okay, so I don't have enough knowledge of Japanese to be... Again, this is what I mean about don't take Pedantic's word, right? Because I don't know enough about Japanese to be able to know if they're being accurate.
Well, so far it's accurate. So.
Right. Okay, that's good to know.
I know enough Japanese to translate this. And
that's good.
It's accurately translated so far.
All right. Well, that's good.
Attached. To be clear, I don't think the choices of translation were a particular issue. They retain the meaning of the Japanese, Lily being trans, and were just translated that way to flow a bit more naturally. However, the fact remains that if you try to say things were different in the original Japanese, the only difference you'll find is Lily being even more clearly trans.
I don't know if that actually... Because here's the thing, right? She's not saying that she has gender dysphoria and saying that she wants to be a woman. She's merely saying that that was the identity that they threw away, right? So it's not like, because because this is where it gets confusing, right? It gets confusing because you can be like an effeminate man that throws away their masculinity and chooses to like take on a new name or like look a different way, dress up in a certain way, but you don't actually have to consider yourself trans to do that. So I find it very, again, it feels like Pedantic is sort of imposing her own view on it a little bit.
Kind of.
I don't know if any.
There is.
That's just the impression I'm getting.
There is a more, let's say, fluid approach in Japanese media where characters are more freely. I mean, you can just concrete examples. Ouran High School Host Club. You got plenty of other shows where the main character has to dress up like a girl or the other way around. Mariaholic is a reverse from Ouran High School Host Club. Utena is also one that defies gender roles. The Japanese media has more freedom in how the characters can act and choose more feminine or masculine ways. Some people say it's because of the history where at one point in time females were banned from theater, so the males did all the female roles.
And that was a thing in the West as well, because they used to, like, for female roles, they used to use young boys.
Yeah, but in Japan, it was famous male actors performing as females, and they became famous as being female. So, while there is some, I know there are some movies in America where the main character, a girl in this case, has to dress up to be included in the male system of, I don't know, Mulan, the Disney movie is an example where the female character isn't accepted.
Yeah, and you wouldn't consider Mulan to be trans, would you?
No, but in Mulan's,
Exactly.
But also in Mulan's case, it was a disguise, and not. And well, in this case, and also in stuff like Ouran High School Host Club, it is also treated as a part of their identity of preferring their...
The feminine. They prefer the feminine sort of role, which makes sense from that perspective. Hello, Sergeant Strong, whoever you are. Welcome to us bitching about traps.
Yep. Free room for people to join in, and
Yeah.
talk or not talk.
Yeah, the room is up in the voice chat for the watch together, so you can
Just
jump in
don't,
and,
just don't press play.
yeah. I am the one in control.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I feel like for me it comes to like it comes to how do you interpret, right? How are you going to interpret the situation? Because I interpret the situation based off the translation. Like, you can interpret that as being trans if you want, but you can also interpret that as they just want to be feminine, right? Because the backstory of the character is that they're like sort of an idol-ish kind of. I believe I haven't watched the show, so I'm probably going to be kind of wrong. But they're basically they're in a field which favors feminine attributes, right? So it's a male character that's in a feminine dominated field that requires femininity, and because of that they dress feminine and they're overworked and they're stressed out. So when the facial hair starts to pop up on the character, they have a heart attack because they basically get stressed out from the fact that they're becoming more masculine, right? That's how I interpreted it. I didn't interpret it as this character is a female trapped in a male's body. And I saw no indication based off what I've seen that was the case, right? But that's the problem. It's all about how you interpret it.
Yeah, and with Lily's character in particular, be more concerned about your career and actually dying over that is something that is really her character and was played up for laughs. So, like, the idea of actually, taking this as a serious statement kind of, like, blows my mind. Also, she's undead, as in she was raised from the dead, so the phrase, "that was my old name," could have just been her referring to herself in life.
Well, I disagree slightly, because it was her identity, her real name, and she took the opportunity when she was undead to take up a new identity, which was more closer to the feminine that she preferred.
Right. Let's keep going. Let's see where Padentic takes this.
All of that wasn't enough. An interview just came out in Animate after the latest episode, where the staff refers to the idols as kanojo-tachi, meaning the girls. They didn't say the girls and Lily, they included Lily within and consider her to be one of the girls. If you attempt to deny the fact that she is clearly established as transgender, you're either acting in bad faith or...
do you see this? Do you see
this?
Do you see that? I see what you do there. I see what you're doing there, Pedantic.
All criticism is wrong, but...
Yeah, totally. Those colors, like, those colors definitely mean something, Pedantic. That's
even. Sure.
That's what. No, Ali, like that. Those colors are like the transgender, like, what is it? The transgender flag? Or is it the pansexual flag? I'm trying to fucking remember. It's one of the fucking Tumblr flags, right? Like those, like the fucking blue, white, red, blue, I think is like their colors or something. So what she's doing is she's zooming in on that, trying to get that, like, subliminal fucking, like, we're basically getting Alex Jones'd. Right? She's going, look, there's symbols in the anime that says that it's transgender because I'm looking for symbols and
When you design your flag as a pastel nightmare, you shouldn't be surprised when a Japanese teenage girl copies it. Or not copies it, but has similar color scheme.
This is what I mean, right? It's like...
Well, I see the same colors on her entire uniform, and I think that those colors are her colors. It would fit more if Lily's character had those thematic colors.
Maybe. I think, like I said, I feel like I'm getting Alex Jones, and I'm getting fucking, like, look at the subliminal messaging in the anime, right? That's what I'm getting. So let's I wanted to point that out. So
somewhat adorably naive. But of course, because there's now a prominent trans character in a high-profile show, that means I need to finally get around to giving a lesson on the term trap.
Class.
I hate it.
I ate it already.
Please.
Let's go on.
Okay. I just want to remind people that Padentic is in a relationship with Zarya, so so let's just keep that in mind when you see the live act. It's kind of Also, that's the flag, by the way. The fucking flag.
Yeah, the pastel nightmare.
Lesson 1. The history of traps. In order to uncover the true meaning of the term, we'll have to dig deep into the boy pussy of history and find out where trap came from in the first place. While it's real dark and messy here in the annals of eras past, we can still get a general timeline for things. Traps started rising in prominence on various image boards around the start of 2004, and most notably, this origin for the term coincides with the launch of 4chan in late 2003, and came soon after the birth of the Admiral Akbar "It's a Trap" meme on the Something Awful forums in late 2002. That image macro became popular as something to post to warn others of an upcoming bait-and-switch. So, in response to posts of cute anime girls that were actually cute anime boys in disguise, people would post "It's a trap" to warn of that bait-and-switch, and relatively quickly, people began to refer to this type of character as traps, because it is a trap. However, the term would not remain limited to the glorious realm of 2D. On YouTube, there's a video from Otakon 2007 where the trans girl who would come to be known as porn actress Bailey J is posing and flaunting, explaining to the convention staff that no, she's technically a boy actually, so flashing her breasts isn't a breed.
That is
okay.
a much more innocent time.
Okay.
Yeah, I would still slightly disagree with it. It left 2D because it is very much in the culture.
And I find it interesting how. Hang on. How can the 3D chick be trans, right? So it's male. My brain's melting down because if it's male to female, right? Then technically them flashing the breasts shouldn't be allowed because they want to be female, right? That's supposed to be the rule. So why would they then say that they're male?
I don't think.
I think the person dressing up right here is male.
Yeah, biologically male. But if they're trans, because Padentic literally said the person was trans, right?
Are you sure?
They literally said that. Yes, I'll go back.
Sure.
Because she refers to this 3D chick as the trans woman in the video. I'll go back, right? Let's listen
2D.
Here again.
On YouTube, there's a video from Otakon 2007 where the trans girl who would come to be
We are the trans girl, right? So this is a trans girl, right? So male to female.
I think you're getting slightly hung up in this, even if it was trans, if it's trans in this current year. In that point of time, he explained that he was a male and therefore it should be fine.
But no, hang on a minute. No,
I love this double standard, by the way.
Yeah, it's double standards, whatever.
Yeah,
but
hang on a minute. No, hang on a minute. Because if it's no, because then it wouldn't be a trans person, right? If they're calling themselves male, then they're not trans. You can't just decide. You can't just fucking is this? Because here's the question, right? We would have to ask the person, right? At the time, did you consider yourself trans, yes or no? Because if they don't, and they did consider themselves male, then Padentic is imposing her bullshit on, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. That's the problem.
The nature of this whole video, where it's already got a conclusion. So, and we're just here for the ride.
Yeah,
pretty much, but it's fucking blowing my brain because you can't do that. You can't just have because if they were trans, they would consider themselves female in a male body. So therefore, if they were flashing their breasts in public, they would consider themselves to be female. So it technically wouldn't be something that they should be doing because females are not allowed. I mean, I don't actually agree with that.
Yeah, that's the other. I just want to point out that's. This was unintentional on Pedantic's part, but that is kind of like throwing some shade at the transsexual community when you're putting them, or when you're portraying a situation as, oh well, they'll just claim anything or any gender.
They'll just claim they're a fucking.
The skirt around the rules.
That's what I mean. This is what, like, this shit fucking breaks my brain because they make it way more complicated than it needs to be. I don't understand.
This is like saying,
God.
oh, well, cub porn doesn't violate our rules.
It's fucking nuts. But anyway, let's get through this before I lose my shit.
Known as porn actress Bailey J is posing and flaunting, explaining to the convention staff
my God,
that
we have
no,
16
she's
minutes
technically
left.
a boy actually.
Yeah,
so
this is a
flashing
long
her
video.
breasts isn't a breach of public decency regulations. Somehow, I don't think I'd be able to pull that same trick in a YouTube video and avoid having it taken down, unfortunately. While she does this, the whole crowd loudly chants trap, trap, trap. And in fact, one of the usernames that was used to refer to her, one that she referred to herself as on 4chan, was Line Trap. So, at the very latest, starting...
Okay, so hang on a minute. So we've got a person that you have applied the identity of transgender to, who considered themselves a trap rather than a transgender. Because this is, again, I've never heard of this person. I don't know if they consider themselves transgender. I'm supposed to take Pedantic's word for it.
I'm slightly more worried at he denies the identity of Trap and just calls it trans.
That's what I mean, right? It's like, no, that's not how that works, Romantic. If you're allowed to consider yourself the identity of a female or male, or I actually don't even remember what fucking trans direction Pedantic fucking goes in. I think it's female, right? Like, if you're allowed to take on that identity, then someone can take on whatever other identity they want, such as trap or whatever. That's the whole point of your movement, is to allow people to take on identities. So just because someone takes on an identity you don't like, doesn't mean you get to erase it. Oh man, we're only 3 minutes in and I'm dying. All right, let's keep going.
In 2007, trap extended to describe not just actual people, but specifically actual trans people, not simply cross-dressing men. In 2010, the subreddit...
Citation needed.
Well,
citation.
No, I disagree really with the point that it's still in the subculture. It's still understood as a thing within the subculture, not outside of it. I think that's rather important.
They also have not...
I have never heard of somebody who was actually transsexual in a anime referred to as a trap.
And we haven't gotten to a point where because Pedantic clearly has the view that trap is transphobic and is a negative term. We have not gotten to the point where they've explained how it's negative. Because when they were chanting trap at that convention, it didn't really seem like it was being done in a it's not like they were screaming the N-word at a black person to try and be derogatory.
Burn the trap.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Everybody was just...
exactly.
That was like 2000, what year did they say that was?
7.
Yeah, that was when everyone was still kind of in the fuck the man mode that everyone had throughout the 90s.
So it's
that was Bush era.
Yeah, so it's like people were celebrating it. They weren't like... this is what I don't understand. Like, I've never seen... Like, in terms of the subculture, right? I've never seen the word trap be used in a negative way, and I'm very interested to see what Pedantic's justification is for making it negative.
Yeah, let's see what's happening.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Or Traps was made, a Reddit that has over 100,000 subscribers, and a Reddit whose description was, "Our Traps is for the posting of photos and video of young and beautiful trans girls and individuals who would love to trap. Our Traps is only for male to female content." As recently as March of this year, according to the Wayback Machine. Very recently, they changed it to say that the subreddit is for posting images and videos of traps, presumably to avoid explicitly calling trans women traps, but
And I wonder why that is, Romantic. I wonder why it wasn't a problem, like, a few months ago, like, based on from when this, like, video was made, because she mentioned that it was, like, a few months ago they changed it. I wonder what changed that caused them to change it. Could it possibly be the transgenders getting a bit pissy? Is that possibly what... Like, it's perfectly fine for years since the subreddit was made, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it becomes a problem. Think about that for a minute.
Fact is that the actual content hasn't changed since that description change, because Traps was always referring to trans women on this subreddit. Finally, in 2017, David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the Ku...
Well, of course you would follow David Duke because
Yeah, of
he's
course.
your idol.
Of course you're going to bring up David Duke, Pedantic.
I have no idea who he is, but
He was the leader.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll
I'll let,
explain
I'll,
this
I
because
will let an American explain this.
you're gonna let a Southerner explain this. Thank you very fucking much. So, yeah, no. So David Duke was the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Do you know what the Ku Klux Klan is?
and not a very happy organization.
It's an organization going back since the post-Civil War, where they just really didn't like black people. They wanted a separate white community, and they wanted black people to be separate. And they do all sorts of nasty hate crime stuff. And for some reason, and I guess this really just like underscores how large of LARPers they are. They would refer to the head of their organization as the Grand Wizard.
And I believe they were Democrats as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Early on, but Dixie Democrats kind of died like 50s. Like, I know a lot of people like to make the joke, oh, well, there wasn't really a reverse or anything, but there kind of was an ideological reverse because Democrats back in those times were still having to appeal to Southerners and were significantly more conservative than they are now. Politics in America is a circus.
Here's the thing, right?
So yes, David Duke was a Grand Wizard. He was the head.
Yeah, here's the thing about this in Romantic, right? I don't understand why you would take the word of David Duke seriously, because David Duke does this a lot, right? He endorses political candidates specifically because his endorsement is like hot nuclear waste, right? Like,
so he's political troll.
Yeah, so what will happen is he endorses like Hillary, right? Like, he'll endorse Hillary Clinton because the fact that he was the Grand Wizard of the KKK will mean people will not vote for whoever he endorses.
I
right?
think that joke gets old really quick, but...
Exactly. So, when he's here saying traps are gay, right, I don't know why this is relevant.
Sure, it's 2 years ago, and I think if he does this trick more than 3 years, then everybody should know that his word is just basically contrary.
It's pretty simple. Pedantic here is trying to associate link in your brain the phrase trap and this phrase and
KKK.
and white nationalism, the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
Good example of this, if you watch the recent LRM or Red Letter Media video when they're going over the this police training video on Satanism, there's this part in the beginning where they mention that the satanic Ilave Satanism community and the homosexual community go hand in hand, their words, because they're trying to link those things in your mind. You're linking this identity to a negative thing. It's a psychological
thing. Let's see how they end this. How Pedantic ends this segment, because I'm very fascinated to David Duke.
And I just want to say, when you're trying to make a serious video and you're wanting to be taken seriously, it's really disingenuous to do this type of psychological manipulation on the viewer.
All right, let's see where they go, and then we'll pause when they're finished with this David Duke.
That Ines Road looks pretty good, by the way.
Yeah. She does look pretty good.
Nice
All
house.
right, let's finish.
Klux Klan tweeted out an image of Playboy announcing its first trans playmate, along with the caption, "Traps are gay." This event is distinct from and more noteworthy than things like Malik Obama tweeting about traps, because in that case he clearly didn't really know about what it meant and was just repeating what he'd been told after he asked.
Okay, so this makes the assumption that David Duke knows about traps outside of a meme. Because let's be real, traps are gay. Because what was the date on that? 2017?
October.
Yeah. So at that time, traps are gay was pretty big. I think it started growing If it wasn't big, it was growing traction as a meme around 2017. So I'm I find it very hard to make the assumption, like, because that's what Pedantic is doing. They are making the assumption of intent, right? Did David Duke tweet it out because they actually think traps are gay and like traps, or did David Duke tweet it out just because it was a hot meme and he wanted to get publicity because he has no publicity because he's David Duke?
Yeah.
Right. So this is the thing, right?
So far it's just only being negative connotations and a little bit of speculation on Lily. I haven't really heard any arguments yet for why traps don't exist.
And I think if you apply, like, I think it's Occam's razor, isn't it? The one where it's like the most simple thing is usually the correct one, right? If you have to make up this assumption that David Duke has an internalized knowledge of what a trap is and its history and all of that shit,
and all the other trans issues that surround it,
if you apply the razor to it, it could just be that he saw people tweeting about it and wanted to get in on it. Like, that's you know.
He can't apply Occam's razor, because if he were to do that, he would have to acknowledge the very obvious fact that traps are in fact gay.
Alright, let's keep going then.
About it. Davy Boy, on the other hand, demonstrated a legitimate understanding of the term by using it to refer to a trans woman.
How?
Well,
no.
It showed more of an understanding, but it didn't show.
But that's still an assumption, though.
Yeah, the true understanding would be posting Bridget.
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. It's still an assumption. You can't just say, like, that you can't just say that he has intrinsic knowledge, because you don't know if he does or not. That's you're not a mind reader, right? You can't just place, like, you can't put intent on people. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. Let's keep going.
Those are all the most relevant milestones, and they leave us with a few interesting conclusions to draw. For starters, trap as a term is not derived from Japan or its fan communities. Etymologically, it is a Western construction through and through. While there are Japanese terms that are used similarly to how we use trap, otokonoko and joso, trap was not based on those terms, and as a result, it doesn't fully match up with them, nor can it be used as an accurate substitute for them.
Although I have been seeing people try and use that fucking O word, I feel like this is the problem, right? Are people going to say a word that has way too many O's in it that a dyslexic person such as myself can't even fucking mentally comprehend? Or are we just going to call people traps?
Otaku.
Otaku. Like, I can't. I physically fucking can't. Like, I look at that word.
Otokonoko is very. I like the term otokonoko because it's very lyrical. If that makes sense. Also, it shows off a weak thread.
Yeah, but for, like, people, I would actually have to physically teach myself how to say that, because I can't. Like, I look at the word, it goes into my head, and then it just becomes mush because there's so many O's, and the O's all sort of just kind of, like, when I try and say it, it comes out as like, right? I can't. So, are you being fucking able-phobic or some shit, Pedantic? Are you suggesting that... I know that Pedantic's not suggesting it, but I'm talking more about the people that do, right? Are you people, like, suggesting that we should use a word that disabled people can't use? Isn't that a bit fucking, like, disabled-phobic?
Just call yourself disabled?
Well, I actually technically am.
Okay.
No, I'm not gonna be... I'm not, like... I don't give a shit, right? I actually... I have medical shit and paperwork that proves it. Like, I'm not a fucking idiot that does that shit where they self-diagnose, right? Like, I actually fucking have doctor's papers and shit that prove I am technically disabled.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
I know it was a joke, but I take it a little seriously because I get tired of people online that are like, oh, I got fucking autism because I read a thing on Tumblr that said that I have autism, and I'm like, fuck off, faggot, you don't. As someone that has an actual autistic brother who's very, very autistic, and someone who has autism and ADHD and dyspraxia and all that other shit themselves, it fucks me off to no end when people do that shit. So,
Yeah.
I know I'm getting off, but it's a tangent.
Yeah, just to get a little bit
to bring it back.
Yeah.
But to bring it back, this is what I mean, right? Like, to say that we should change a simple term, which is trap, and use a more complicated term. It's not how language works. You don't jump. Language has been getting simpler over time, not more complex, right? Like, what's a good example of this, right? Like, there are examples of like we used to say stuff like
Goodbye. Goodbye is
Yeah.
a good example because
like we used to. Goodbye, then we go bye, then we can.
No.
see ya.
It goes even further back. Goodbye is a shortening of the phrase "God be with you."
Yeah, exactly. So language is getting simpler over time, not complex. So we would actually be going backwards if we were to adopt a Japanese word which is more complex in English, right? It would be us going in a different direction.
The what's being said here is that trap is a Western concept and doesn't align with the the more correct words of otokonoko, for instance. But I disagree, mostly, because trap is it is not a Japanese product. No, it isn't a product of the Japanese in that the Japanese came up with the word, used the word, and then it transferred over to America and other Western countries like sayonara. Sayonara is commonly recognized. It's an export of Japan, of the Japanese language, etc., etc. But trap is a product of Japanese culture. It describes a part of Japan's media, one particular character type.
Yeah.
And that
describes an archetype.
So in that case, it is a product of Japanese culture.
So it'd be more appropriate to say it's a product of the fan base. Not even, I can't even say a fan base in the West. It was a product of internet culture.
Yeah.
Really, which is very informal.
And also worldwide too, so you could have Japanese people within
and that understands everything that's really dumb about this video. He's adding semantic, or she, I don't know what this thing refers to. I'm gonna get hate mail, but the you're trying to like establish a definition or add your own interpretation of something that was inherently informal. Like, you were there when the word was used, or you weren't.
Well, right. I still in the usage today, or maybe, well, it's expanded a little bit, and I am of the personal opinion that traps only really can apply to, or has its use in the anime communities, in the otaku crowds, where it is understood what you are talking about. Outside of it, it loses its meaning, its use for just maybe jargon that you use in a profession is an example.
Oh, so is it even really that negative when there's how many like cross-dressing cosplayers and everyone's just cool with that?
Yeah, we're about 5 minutes in video now. We still haven't actually got the argument yet that why is this a problem, right? We've had the explanation, right? And we've had the semantics and them arguing about bullshit, right? And talking about David Duke for some reason, right? But we haven't actually had like a proper argument as to why we shouldn't be using this term.
Well, you say for some reason, but this was clearly leading into the video about the goblins.
All right, let's keep going and see if we can actually.
Also, From relatively early on in the term's existence, its definition had expanded to encompass more than just 2D anime femboys. For over a decade now, at a bare minimum, trans women have fallen within the bounds of trap's usage. This definition of it extends beyond just 4chan and extends beyond just a small group of people. Even people like David Duke, who will be familiar with the mimetic right-wing lingo to be sure, but who are almost
we
certainly
already
not
disagree
anime
with
fans
this part, so... Yeah,
Did he just call trap right-wing lingo?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Well,
Are you kidding me?
let's let it pause for now, because it's a little bit...
We'll let that go. We'll just make a note that we noticed that.
Yeah, keep going.
Online otaku culture are aware of the term trap and what it can mean. And this makes sense, because even if you argue that it should only be defined as guys who look like girls, significant portions of the population maintain that trans women are in fact guys, and thus are in fact guys who look like girls. And I think that this brings us to Lesson 2. The slur
Here we
questions.
go.
Now, the reason that this gift from me, your goddess, is necessary is because trap is an incredibly fraught term right now. To cut to the chase here, many trans people consider trap to be a transphobic slur, and as a result, they and those who support them will ask that people please not use the term. It is incredibly difficult to conduct a discussion on this subject that doesn't immediately fly off the rails, because there's like 6 different tracks it could go down, and usually people just try to take all of the routes at once. You can argue over whether or not trap is in fact a slur in the first place. You can argue if instead of settling and calling it a slur, trans people should just reclaim it. You can argue over whether or not people should be using it even if it is a slur. It is, frankly, a mess. And so I humbly ask that you let me try to take each of these different discourse dicks one at a time, and hopefully I'll avoid getting drowned by internet beef bukkake here. There's
Okay, can I make a note that the sexual innuendo is not helping?
Funny jokes are super funny, but...
yeah, I understand what they're going for. I understand you're trying to be lighthearted, but, like, I actually don't even really have an issue with it. It's just that it's the other. Like, if you just did one, then you'd be fine. But it's because it's like 3 or 4 with the span of the same sentence. It's getting a bit distracting for me.
Yeah, it's more of a problem with the presentation instead of the real content. But...
Yeah, I know. Like, that's kind of my thing. I like to fucking critique the videos in terms of the presentation. Like, this is part of my... It's kind of part of my stick, right? Like, I feel like it would have been way better if... Like, you could still have the sexual... It's just tone it down a little bit, because you're trying... Again, it's like bringing up David Duke and what Wally said earlier. You're trying to make a serious video about a serious point where you're trying to get people to take you seriously. You're not going to get taken seriously if you're constantly talking about dicks and bukkake, right? It's not helping your argument. So let's see, because we're actually getting into that. So let's see.
2 main schools of thought on trap. One is a more open-ended approach that basically says, if they have a dick and they look like a girl, that's what a trap is. With the general idea being that a trap is defined by being tricked into being attracted to someone with a dick because they look like a girl. The other is more essentialist and maintains that traps are specifically actual guys that look like girls. So this would be cute anime femboys and cis-male cross-dressers mostly. Now, one of the main reasons that second school of thought arose is to reconcile the desires of those who subscribe to it to both continue using trap and to support trans women who take issue with the term. They say that we should call out those who use trap incorrectly, meaning call out people who use the term for characters and people who don't fit their definition of the term. I think that this is pretty blatantly unworkable as a plan of action, though, because it just isn't how language functions. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about descriptive linguistics versus prescriptive linguistics, where the former defines words by what they're used to mean, and the latter tries to assert a true or correct meaning for words regardless of how they come to be used. By its very nature, words are something whose meanings shift over time, and that humans create for ourselves to describe things. If you aren't defining a word by what people understand and use it to mean, you're just divorcing yourself from reality. And trap is simply way too widely used as something that encompasses trans women and non-binary people to try to somehow combat that and herd everyone into some more restrictive definition of it. David Duke is calling
for a second.
Trap. Oops, now we're way back.
Yeah, so just stopping for a second. The whole thing with because he's talking about plagiarization, or the reverse of it in this case, how the meaning of a word changes over time. The whole idea that the original meaning of the word being, an entrapment, and that as a result, that being a way let me put it this way. So, the whole idea that the original meaning of the phrase was supposed to be that it was tricking you into you like that person, or you're attracted to this girl, but it actually turns out to be a guy, right? That's the original meaning of the phrase.
Well,
I think that's how Padentic has framed it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Slight disagreements,
and,
but
I will say that was initially the joke, but if words change over time, and clearly the word trap now was more positive than it was in the past, then why are we even having this discussion? Because, like, she just acknowledged, like, or he, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. But, no, like, this goes both ways. If you're saying that plagiarization is a thing, it goes both ways. So, how is it still problematic if the meaning has shifted?
I have also two things. One of is that was it the prescriptive definition of trap being used early on? I kind of disagree with it, in that it isn't really the person, the person in the image trapping the viewer. It's the users themselves who trap them.
Yeah, this kind of goes into my answer to the whole traps.
People aren't the characters aren't actively trapping or deceiving the characters. The characters assume, and they assume wrong, and they are punished for it by questioning their sexuality.
Yeah, and this kind of ties into the traps are gay question and my personal feelings on it. And my personal feelings on it are, it depends on what you're attracted to. Are you attracted to the fact that it's feminine, or are you attracted to the fact that it has a dick?
Oh no, it's 100, or it's a combination of both, and that's why it's.
Well,
gay.
it can be a combination of the both. However, let's say you looked at an image and you didn't know it was a trap, and you were simply attracted to the fact that it looked feminine.
Oh, in that case, yeah, but the main appeal of a trap is the fact that it looks feminine, but it has a dick. The dick is what makes it work. So if you're
that's true.
If you
that's
don't,
true, but it still has to be feminine, and that's the key point.
Yeah,
right?
but
that's the key. That's the key in my view. That's the key in my view, is that, like, you wouldn't look at a masculine trap, right? Like because that would just be a dude, even if it has a feminine penis, right?
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't work. But if you're looking at it's because it has those feminine attributes that set off the signals in your brain. That's what makes it not gay, in my opinion, from that perspective. However, if the dick is the primary focus, so let's say you're not attracted to the fact that it's particular, like you're attracted to the fact that it's like a scale, right? Imagine there's a scale, right? And the scale has feminine on it has a feminine on one side, and it has the dick on the other, right? And there can be like weights in between, right? So perhaps for one person, it's more on the feminine side. They like it because it's feminine. The dick's still there, and it's still a factor, but they prefer that the reason it's setting off the signals in the brain is because it's feminine. You can also have the inverse, right? The fact that it's feminine is not necessarily the driving focus. It's the fact that it has the male characteristic of a penis, right?
I kind of think you're overthinking that.
This is what I do. I overthink.
I know, no. What I was trying to say is that, in particular, if you search the word trap on Gelber and you pull up an image and you're specifically looking for that, then it's the exoticism of it that does it for you.
Yeah,
and
so
if the exoticism involves a dick, it's gay.
Yeah, it's also a form of play. it's a taboo. I think it's
Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. You can be attracted to whatever the fuck you want, but like, no, it's
so
self-awareness is important.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'm just making the argument. That's all.
It's also part of the taboo and the fun of questioning sexuality. It's a play, and being letting yourself be deceived is part of the fun.
Yes, I agree with that.
So trap is to me is a very accurate description, but I kind of forgot at the point where we paused.
Well,
I had a point in front.
Yeah, because it jumped forward, but I think so. I'm going to go
backwards.
Okay, so
These meanings shift over time, and that humans create
All
for
right.
ourselves
We'll
to
go
describe things. If you aren't defining a word by what people understand and use it to mean, you're just divorcing yourself from reality.
Right,
and
you can
trap
pause
is
again.
simply way too wide.
All right,
Way too wide spread.
I like that projection, by the way, that you're the viewer who is opposed to this and clearly supports David Duke and not Pedantic here, is divorcing reality.
Yeah, so I also very much disagree. We must stop using a word because its use is too widespread.
Here's the thing: how is somebody using that phrase, a divorce from reality, when it's divisive? Because if it's divisive, by default, at least half or even a majority of the population or the people who are aware of the phrase use it in the way, or use it that way.
In a different way, yeah. My point is that you have different cultures, subcultures, using the same word in different ways.
Like she, what the fuck ever is conflating it by saying like, oh, this is like calling red blue. You're divorcing yourself from reality when that's not the case at all.
But even if I want to make this point,
the fact that we're having this discussion proves that there is actually reality to the fact that people are using the phrase trap to refer to feminine cross-dressers.
And I was just going to say that using color as an example there is very apt because technically you can't explain color.
Well, even let's say if you say red and blue, you can think blue is calm and red is hot-headedness. But if you
feeling, yeah.
Yeah, but if you go to a Japanese person, he might associate it very quickly to the red and blue oni.
Yes, because and the thing with color is that it's actually a linguistical, how do you pronounce that word? It's a linguistical kind of problem within language itself that we cannot actually explain what color is in terms of like you can't describe what red is.
Yeah,
you see red. Well, you see red, and red makes you feel things. But when I tell you, okay, I want you to objectively tell me what red the color is and what it looks like, right? You can't actually tell. It's very hard, right? Like you can't. Like if I had like a red ball in front of you, and I said, okay, I want you to describe me what the color red of that ball looks like. You'll go, okay.
A lowered frequency on the lower light frequency.
Yeah, you could get very, very scientific, but like that's the thing, right? If you talk to a normal person and you go, right, okay, look at the sky. The sky is blue. Okay, describe the blue for me. Like just what? It's actually a very common.
A higher light frequency than red.
Yeah. Well, that's like the scientific thing, but it's like
it's fun.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like describing the actual look of the color, right? Like you can't. Like you can go. Oh, it's a lighter blue. Okay, but what does lighter blue even mean, right? Like outside of frequencies, it's a linguistical problem within language itself.
It's hard to describe something that's already a descriptor.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, and
my problem with this is that it's kind of equating the fact that it's equating a divisive definition with it's equating half of a divide in a conversation about a definition as being divorced from reality.
Yeah, so they're
In a
already
way that's
they've already put the fucking stake in the grass, basically.
yeah, it's already to the point where you don't even have to bother watching the video. You already know the person's intent. You already know what they're going to say about it.
I think Ali might have said it before. It's like we already have the conclusion. Like we don't like there's the argument like we already know what Pedantic's conclusion is. It's just kind of now what is the process they're using to get to it.
Well, this is still a valid reason to make a video, but I want to make one point on controversial words and different definition for different groups. If I say SS, well, what does that mean to you?
Straight soda.
Yeah.
Well, it can mean straight soda. I actually did think about Nazis because I play a lot of War Thunder and I've had that on my brain. So
yeah. So my mind would go to system suitability. So you see, you got 3 definitions on a controversial word. You can argue we should stop using SS, but why? We are operating in completely different realms in different contexts.
None of those different usages of the term is divorced from reality, like Padentic is saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm talking about it in the historic term. Lolly's talking about it in a classification term,
a contextual term, because
contextual term, and
this person's talking about language and is assuming that only one context or contextual usage of a term is the valid one. And that's not how language works. What you brought up in particular is what people call the acronym problem, or why you don't use technical acronyms to describe something.
Let's use your word purge. You could say purge. People were purged. That's bad. We shouldn't use purge. It's way of the graphic description of something.
To use a term that's that would be a bit easier to approach. Some people, when you hear the phrase AA, they'll think of anti-aliasing, and they will think of that because of what their normal hobbies might be, or even what the discussion currently is. If we're talking about, graphics and video games, and I say the phrase AA, you're going to think of anti-aliasing and not
you're going to know what you're talking about.
And not anti-aircraft. But if somebody's talking about something in the military, so there's a contextual thing to all of this that he's just completely sidelining because.
And remember when gay used to just mean happy?
Yeah, like there's a contextual
good old gay
thing.
days.
Yeah,
the gay days.
Yeah, the best days. But no, like there's this entire contextual thing that he's just completely sidelining because it fits the argument, and I guess he only views his or the trans definition as valid, and that's not how this works. It's not how language works. It's not how human interaction works, but I'm going to guess that he probably doesn't interact outside of his house very often.
Well, let's not be mean.
Let's not be too mean. We're not.
I should be mean.
We can be a little mean, but let's not be too mean.
Yeah, I mean, words can. The same word can have different definitions in different contexts, even if those 2 definitions may be even very close to each other. And I think there is a very, you can have peace, really.
In this case, somebody on A talking about a trap in a anime is going to be talking about something like a Stolfo, which is a very distinct thing from like Brianna Wu as a transsexual.
Yeah.
By the way, it took me like 4 years to figure out that it was supposed to be MTF and wasn't actually like I couldn't figure out what the hell it was.
Anyway, all right, let's get past this bit and move on.
Used as something that encompasses trans women and non-binary people to try to somehow combat that and herd everyone into some more restrictive definition of it. David Duke is calling trans people traps. The transgender StarCraft pro Scarlet is being referred to as a trap.
Where?
I want to read them. So Scarlet, are you single? I'm Canadian too. Have dinner and talk about it. And then someone's like, "That's a dude, so thirsty." Not a dude. It's a trans woman. Well, wait. Okay. There's no such thing as a trans woman, according to this commenter. It's really a dude. Some people would prefer not to play pretend, like the rest of society nowadays. Do you just assume that? Did you just assume that you check your privilege? Y'all saying that she's trans, it would make a difference. You're fucking lost. You're fucking lost for being an ass. It's a trap. Could you stop that, please? Just going to argue. You're just going to encourage the SJW. So, out of all of those comments, only one of them was that it's a trap.
Is he using a flame thread full of shit posting as a reference?
Yeah, YouTube comments, the most objective measurement survey.
Like, see, this is why I don't think this person actually leaves their computer, because they're having to fucking use this as a point of reference.
Like, so this person, because I don't follow StarCraft. This Scarlet person is a trans person, right? Okay,
yeah.
Sure. Okay, sure, fine, right?
The
That's
blade,
okay.
the Queen of Blades, most
famous.
So
one person in a random comment from a random dude that was most likely a shitpost to begin with, saying that they're a trap, proves that all trans people are being called traps. Is this what I'm supposed to take away from this?
Yes.
Up till now, this
100% complies with AMA guidelines. You should cite this shit.
Like, I'm sorry, Pedantic, but I think the common thread for this entire discussion is I don't think that's how that works. I don't think it works like that.
Let's see if there are more examples coming.
Yeah, let's see what other examples we
constantly in various comment sections under uploads of her matches. People on Twitter involved in the Lily debate that I began this video with are straight up saying that because she's a male anime character who looks like a girl, she is definitionally a trap.
Okay, I want to read. Mostly, I read them also just for people that might not be watching the screen, just so they can see it or know what we're looking at. So, okay, so someone says, also, who else had no idea they were telling us that Lily was trans? Somebody replies with trap, star, question mark. Someone else replies with, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have died from shock from growing a beard if she were just a trap. Debatable. And then it's anime, he's a trap. And then that's what we're saying.
It's a comedy. So, it was a comedy situation about how he died.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Again, that comes down to what I was talking about earlier with interpretations. You could interpret it as being shocked because they are trans, but you could also just interpret it as being, well, they want to look feminine, so obviously having body hair show up would be a bit of a problem for that. So I feel like that's not really helping. Because again, you can dismiss that with just the interpretation argument. So yeah, let's keep going and see if there's any other examples.
The largest trans sub on Reddit is R Traps, which we mentioned earlier, and
the largest. See again, you're calling R Traps a trans sub.
You can honestly only claim that it's the largest trans sub if you've already established the definition of it. He's going backwards.
Yeah, you can't. You have to be going under your own definition to be able to make that statement. You can't.
Also, I want to point out that I'm settling on he because that's what this pedantic person. I can't figure out whether it's supposed to be.
It's meant to. I think it's meant to be a chick. I'm pretty sure.
It sounds like a guy to me, so I've just been saying he. So if there's anyone that's going to get offended, I get the fuck over that. But
yeah, I don't care either. But it's I feel like right now, I feel like they've already come to the conclusion. They're out the alternative viewpoints and they're just running with what they think is correct.
Well, we've still got like 5 other arguments to go.
Yeah, I know, it's
Still
going to be
10
great.
fucking minutes.
Yeah, we still got ages to go.
Should we challenge ourselves to listen to the entire argument before we pause?
But there's so many like good things you can bring
There's
up.
so many things to comment. Yeah, there's so many good comments to make. But let's just see. Let's see how we go. Keep going and see what the next sort of argument is.
It has well over twice as many followers as r-trans porn. Informational trans subreddits like r-ask-transgender, as well as the trans meme subreddit r-trans, are all smaller. And the
Okay, I know we were meant to. Look, I can't. Right, I can't. Listen, I want to point out that our traps is probably bigger because it doesn't just cater to trans people, right?
And also,
Let's
I
use
think it isn't a porn. Porn has lower numbers almost always. So
here's the thing, right? If you're talking about this from logic and statistics, trans people make up what 1% of the global population, give or take. I think it was like the last statistic I saw, which I can't cite.
It would be for a specific country, not entire world.
No, well, I like a lot of the time when I argue with these trans activists and whatnot, they keep telling me that it's 1% of the global population. So I'm gonna go under the assumption that they're not lying to me, right?
Sure.
But let's assume let's assume for the sake of argument that that's correct and it is 1%, right? Because realistically it could be.
Hold on to that thought because I want to.
Yeah, hold on. As Lolly goes to
end. Yeah, I want you to hold on to the 1% because I need to bring up something at the end. Keep going.
So let's assume that it's 1%. So if we have subreddits, let's say like basically just websites that are specifically designed and made to cater to trans issues and trans related media, specifically trans porn, transgender like ask me anythings, transgender like in general, right? Naturally those subreddits are going to have less people on them because of the fact that the population of people interested in that topic is going to be lesser than traps, because trap is not just encompassing transgenders. It also encompasses cross-dressing. It also encompasses other types of thing that is not related to trans. So again, it comes back to what we were saying before. You have to be making the assumption that all traps are transgender in order to classify it as the largest transgender subreddit, when that is completely incorrect, because you don't have to be
unfounded so far.
Yeah. So you don't have to be trans to be a trap, right? So that completely makes it like
yeah. The biggest problem
you
here
get
is
where
that
I'm coming from. You get where I'm coming.
Yeah, the biggest problem is that the conclusion is already being drawn here before the argument is done.
So Lolly, what was your point on the 1%?
Oh well, I was just gonna bring this up at the end after it finished watching the entire thing.
All right, no, let's go.
All right, let's keep going.
The only one that comes particularly close to R-Traps is RT Girls, another trans porn sub. I'm sorry to say it, but you're being naively optimistic if you think trap isn't widely normalized as encompassing trans people as well. Alrighty, we've established that trap is used to encompass trans people, not just cisgender guys, so the next thing to do is to look and see if it's used as a slur. And, upon doing so very extensively, I think it's undeniable to say that trap is in fact used as one. The aforementioned RT Girls actually tells people not to use the term, along with other girls most everyone accepts as actual transphobic slurs, and GLAAD also lists it as defamatory language right next to tranny and she-male. More importantly...
Okay, but are those statistics, are those citations...
GLAAD.
Yeah, that's what I mean, are those citations...
Well,
that's like citing SPLC. Jesus Christ.
Well, in that very quick shot, it said that it would be discriminatory if trans people, or to refer as trans people, trapping people. But it isn't.
I can go back and bring it up on the screen if you want.
Sure, do it.
I can go, because that might be a good idea.
Is in fact used as one. The aforementioned RT.
Okay, so that's the first one. I'm not going to read all that, but...
No, but here, T-Girls doesn't like the word trap, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
He-Girls actually tells people not to use the term, along with other girls most everyone accepts as actual transphobic slurs. And GLAAD...
Here.
Alright, there we go.
Identity is don't characterize transgender people as deceptive, fooling, trapping others. It isn't.
Right.
GLAAD isn't saying that traps as a descriptive character type, acting or behavior, as we understand it here now. Trap isn't defamatory. Just because trapping is, well, not even trapping isn't even.
It's a difference between the description of an action and a description of a category.
Here's the thing: the argument that GLAAD is using right here, and I fucking hate it when they bring up arguments like this because it is the most. I'll leave out discussions about sociology and its current state in the world for later, but no, the whole idea is that the original phrase "trap" was used, literally it's somebody being tricked. So because its original phrase means that, it is derogatory or by default because it encourages the zeitgeist, as it were, to consider transsexuals as. By the way, this already assumes that people refer to transsexuals as traps, so this isn't even really a good thing to cite. But the they refer to God. The people in my house are loud.
Yes.
But yeah, no, they refer to the. They refer. God, actually. It actually breaks my.
All right, I can make a small point that may be the same, maybe not. Like I said before, the people who are the trapping done by a trap is the person who looks at one. It isn't the trap who does it. It's a self action done by themselves.
So it's a difference of intent.
Yeah, a trap isn't deceiving people. It's merely
they subsided their voices, so I can actually explain what I was saying.
All right, if I can make my point real quick.
Yeah, we'll let Ellie finish.
So a trap isn't deceiving another. It's more of a trapping the viewer, himself, herself, in a false sense, in a false assumption. When you say a transgender person is trapping somebody, that is an active, malicious deception on the part of the transgender.
Yeah.
Which is wrong.
Yeah, what GLAAD is specifically saying is that using the phrase just simply using the phrase, doesn't matter the context, encourages people to see transsexuals, and this is assuming that people are even referring to actual transsexuals as traps, encouraging people to consider transsexuals as inherently deceptive or putting on a masquerade in order, or that they're a fake woman or something like that, and that is really stretching it. And I hate the assumption that the idea that the zeitgeist is this malleable, because everyone I've heard, especially GLAAD, which is an advocacy organization, and you should kind of be careful when citing an advocacy organization because they have their own agendas, and
This would be like citing Alex Jones to prove something.
Yeah, and it's like I don't think the zeitgeist or the greater consciousness is that so malleable that somebody referring to Astolfo as a trap encourages people to
I also want to point out the other words that are alongside it. So deceptive, fooling, pretending, posing, or masquerading. So are we supposed to assume that we can't use all these other words?
Well, there's more. It's more of a let's say, discriminatory stereotype that transsexuals are, of transgender people are, deceiving, and
Yeah,
that
but
is not what's being implied when we use the word trap.
yeah, it's yeah. I think it's a bad source. I don't think you should be citing stuff like this.
It
I think
isn't
that,
really. It doesn't take account. This is never. It never come. This
I have a
play.
s-
Yeah, let's come back to this idea of play. This play of letting yourself be deceived. That has never come into the minds of the people who wrote this.
And I think that the reason that Pedantic is citing this is again because they've already made their conclusion, and this is something that reinforces their conclusion. It's not accurate, but because it reinforces their own. It's similar. It's like I said, like if you cited out, like let's say you were trying to prove that the government was secretly creating like genetic fucking cat people underneath the White House or some shit, right? And you cited Alex Jones, right? This is a similar kind of thing, right? Alex Jones is obviously a biased source for that, and he's obviously not probably an accurate source for that. But by citing him, you are trying to reinforce your own point by basically going, "Hey, look at this established person." It's kind of like appeal to authority, right? It's, "Hey, look at this established website / person / like thing, like this GLAD thing, right? They agree with me, so that means I must be right."
This is out of context, really. That is the major issue with this.
Yeah,
this is out of context.
It's like if you're trying to say that Pepe the Frog was alt-right related, and you quote the Southern Poverty Law Center, like, and it's such. It's really cherry picking your sources specifically to back up something. Like there's no real counter to this. This entire video it's operated on the assumption this thing's entirely for people to reinforce their own. This isn't designed to actually convince bystanders. This is designed to reinforce the opinions of people who already agree with this, and I think this is something that Pedantic here is.
Well, most videos do that, so I'm not surprised that this one does it either. Let's continue.
Right. It also lists it as defamatory language right next to tranny and she-male. More importantly, though, its use as a slur is incredibly pervasive. In the exact same way that a black person being dogpiled will have monkey and the N-word thrown at them, or a gay person will have faggot thrown at them.
Remember what I was talking about? I don't know if this was recorded. Remember what I was talking about earlier about trans people want to use trap as their N-word? This is exactly what I'm talking about.
They already got some words, but...
Like this is the thing, right? It feels to me like they almost, like people like Pedantic, when I say they, right? They want the word to be offensive. They want to have that word that they can use as the beating stick, similar to how black activists will use the word, the N-word. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get the fucking video destroyed, but it feels to me like they just want to have their word, right? And they're trying to justify why it should be their word. I just wanted to make that point.
Words are very fluid, and it's I did some reading, and you got problematic words like faggot in America or the English-speaking world, where faggot is offensive. Its meaning is offensive, but to a younger crowd, it has way less negative connotations. So
yeah, and
so in Japan, you have this word, Japanese equivalent of faggot, really, which now where younger people are calling gay people, cross-dressers, that, but adding chan or san at the end, making it a normal word. So
yeah. I was going to say this reminds me of a comedian's act that I watched when I was a kid a very, very long time ago on television.
Is this the C.K. Lewis one where he?
It's one. It's so basically, I think it was a British dude or something, but he makes this joke where he goes to America and he's at a casino, and he's talking with an American guy at a casino, and he says, "I'm gonna go out back and smoke a fag."
Oh yeah.
Right. So and when he says that, the American guy goes, "What? You're gonna go smoke a fag?" As if he's shocked, and the British guy is like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go smoke a fag out back because I can't do it in here." And then the guy was like, "How the hell are you gonna smoke a fag?" He's like, I'm just gonna light one up." And he's like, "What are you talking to?" Because he thinks that fag means gay person, whereas the British guy is talking about a cigarette. Right?
Yeah.
So and that's the joke, is that because the misunderstanding is that that goes into what we're saying, is like the word is offensive in one context, but in another context it's completely different. It means something else.
Yeah, and
I butchered that joke, by the way. It's way funny.
Yeah, of course. But maybe I should save this till the end, but I'll say it now. Maybe I'll repeat it later, I think. Where the real issue here is that trapping has an older context regarding to transgender people, where there was this idea that they were deceiving people into homosexuality, a great sin, of course. Those damn Satan worshippers, convincing more people to become homo, to become faggots. So, but now you've got this new definition, and there is a little bit of crossover, but it isn't really that much. And this is really a conflict between an old idea, an old reinforcement of the old stereotype, and a newer, more playful one where it isn't the transgender people who are doing the deceiving. It's the victim who does it to himself. Let's continue.
Right. Yep.
Trans people will have people calling them trap, along with tranny and all the others. It's a term used to express dislike, resentment, hatred, etc. towards a specific group of people based upon the group they belong to. It's used by people whose feelings were hurt by my anime opinions. It's used in those negative comments directed towards Scarlet. It's used by people in the comments of Ben Shapiro videos as they discuss how freakish trans people are. It's used to direct that hatred towards an incitement of violence, like the replies to David Duke's trap tweet of people fantasizing about killing trans people.
Yeah, what? David Duke is a very influential and important person.
How many times? Like, this is the third time. This is the third fucking time.
You have to understand. You have to understand that this is really just a low-key thing for Padentic to put traps alongside black people and alongside Jewish people, so that when he decides to slay all of them, he makes sure he gets all of them in one go. You'll understand the multi-level nature of Padentic's long-term planning.
Padentic's great plan to start the Fourth Reich.
He's like, what was the name of the? He's like Goebbels. He's like the propagandist. Like, this is a multi-level campaign. That when it starts, when it happens, he makes sure that he's sure that trans people are there. God. The genius of this.
And by being a trans person themselves, it's the perfect smoke screen.
He has this perfect smoke screen.
Oh my god. Okay, jokes aside though, it's like you're citing like random internet comments and like let's be real. If you're following David Duke and you're replying to David Duke, let's be real here. You're probably already on that like side of the fence, and I'm willing to bet you could also go onto that tweet and find people that would like telling David Duke to shut the fuck up and that he's an idiot, right?
Yeah.
So I don't.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, like I don't think that these citations are helping the argument. I think they're actually hurting. It's like Okay, so people online are stupid. That's nice, I guess. Established. Alright. Alright, let's keep going.
How much clearer do things have to be than the ex-leader of the Ku Klux
Oh.
Klan expressing disgust at a group of people and his...
Yes,
Okay,
we're
is him
citing,
say- no, well, hang on a
citing a meme
hang on
very much
hang on a minute.
endorsement.
Is saying traps are gay on the same level as saying calling for violence against trans people?
Or saying the N-word. So the difference between somebody saying trap and somebody saying the N-word is that the N-word was something that was established, that was almost society-wide back when it was a major slur that people would commonly use. Trap is by a very small community.
There are people who don't mean the harm, don't see the harm, don't know of the harm, whatever way you do.
The larger aware or cultural awareness in the West doesn't see it as a slur, and this is the other thing that I kind of want to get at. So you said before, I asked you to hold on to this thought, the idea that trans people are 1% of the population, right?
Yes, it's from what I keep getting told, it's something like that.
Alright, so this goes back to the divorce from reality comment. Most of the people I see that equate the word traps as being a slur are either trans people or they're activists, which are a very, very, very small portion. How are they not the ones divorced from reality?
It's a good question. It's a very good question.
We can't also just ignore their experiences and such. At some point, all those comments have a wider influence, and I'm pretty sure that you can insult people with anything if you want. Insult them with Republican.
Have you heard
All
about the
those
new thing
damn
on Twitter? Hang on. On this topic, on Twitter, what people have been doing is they've been calling people animals to get away from like getting blocked. Because if you call someone a hamster, you're not going to get blocked. So people have just been like calling people random animals that are not offensive. To try and
until
get,
they are offensive.
And that's what I mean, right? Like, this is why I actually don't like this idea that we have to make. Like, we should be trying to depower these words, not enforce them, right? Because people will just move on to a different word. Like, it'll be trap, and then someone will come up with a different word, right? Like,
but if you don't understand, if you don't codify these words, then he can't rally against something. And if he can't rally against something, he can't have his YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Let's go on.
Yeah,
followers clamoring for those people's deaths in response to that for you to call a term a slur. This is the way slurs are used. This is what a slur looks like. You can even be someone who thinks it's okay to use trap still, but if nothing else, you've got to acknowledge that the term is, among other things, an anti-trans slur.
Yes, it's an I hate to pause again, but I'm sorry, but it's an anti-trans slur because a bunch of people underneath a David Duke tweet responded with "kill all the traps." Right? This is what you're telling me right now. This is your statistical evidence that is a widespread belief that trap causes harm to trans people.
Well, as far as it's been shown to us, still,
that's what I mean. It's like
and still different context, same word, different meanings, different.
Well, didn't you know
uses.
Twitter is the only context?
Yeah, that is an issue.
But anyway, I couldn't let it
Now,
slide.
with that established, the most relevant question becomes, so what do we do? The answer to that question will depend on who you are, so let me set those of you who are just looking to trigger the libcucks to one side for a moment. First, let's address those who do care that people might be made uncomfortable by seeing a slur that's commonly used against them thrown about as a common community term. You might say, look, I understand that you might not like the word, but it describes a specific thing. What do you want me to do? Or if you're a bit less accommodating, you might be wondering, so what, am I really supposed to stop using this because it makes some people feel bad? That just isn't practical, and frankly, I'm gonna need a better reason than just that to give it up.
Yeah, you are.
It's here that I want to note that trap does legitimate harm as a term. In 2013, a trans woman was murdered, and the man who murdered her claimed that he had no control over his actions because finding out that she was trans sent him into a panic. He used what is called the trans panic defense and avoided being charged with a hate crime or with murder, and got manslaughter instead. And that is not the only instance of this. The idea
Alright, this is the only instance given here, and it isn't a link to trap. It's somebody who, even if, let's say, I'm willing to believe. I'm willing to believe
I get what he's saying here. The idea that the word trap enforces the idea that trans people are deceptive.
It's the same as the gal, whatever it was, fucking definition, where it's enforcing the idea that trans people are just out there to deceive, right?
Yeah, but this is also a very minor community within a community that uses a specific word coming into contact with another community. I really doubt it that the users within the word trap within the anime community reinforces the idea of it reinforces a deceiving stereotype.
And I don't see how this very specific case is directly connected as well.
This was before the term was even in the wider context, and that's a behavior that's been going back for years.
And I find it interesting because here's the thing, right? The guy would use that as a defense because this is within like a legal context where he is trying to defend his actions. So of course it's like pleading insanity, right? So he's essentially pleading that he didn't have control over his actions because he was so, in shock over the fact that he had been tricked, right?
Yeah,
so
but you can also say he was tricked in his own mind, but
right.
But was it? He wasn't trapped. Let's say just have three possibilities. First, he was tricked. I don't think trapped is even the right word. He was tricked, and this transsexual person tricked somebody for sex. Person got really mad, got really surprised, confused, and grabbed something and smashed the head in.
Yeah.
All right. Another example. They both knew, but the reputation or something. He was a pastor or loyal churchgoer, and decided to smash the head in because to protect reputation.
Right.
All right. And you got the case that's presented here, and all the minor variants left to right of this case. He could have known, but he didn't realize. He found out, and the head was smashed in. And
he could have just killed this person during rough sex and tried to claim this.
I would have to court documents, and I would have to look into the case a bit more closely.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, maybe I should recommend this for Ricada Law because it would be quite interesting to go over the legal documents of this case because what Pedantic's presenting right now, I don't feel like is.
I feel like
there's more. I feel like there's more to this. Getting it.
I
think that, as you mentioned, there are multiple possibilities as to how this could have actually gone down, and simply because what she described there was basically what I would say the legal defense would have been I wasn't in control of myself because of X, right? I don't think that the fact that the jury or the judge agreed with that has anything to do with the use of the word trap in a modern day context.
That was my point. Any of these cases from the both two extremes that I gave really has anything to do with the word trap. Only the extreme case where the transsexual was deceiving it's a reinforcement of a stereotype, it's also very unlikely, I think.
And I would kind of argue like the opposite of what he's claiming, that using the phrase would result in more violence. I think the idea of using the phrase like trap in a playful manner makes the idea of being tricked into that situation less tabooous, and would probably result in less people being harmed, because
it's still a taboo, but it is a fun taboo.
Yeah, so it's not as big of a deal anymore.
It somewhat normalizes deer, I guess, would be one way to put it.
Like normalization is very tricky, but because
it's very tricky. But I'm trying to think of a good word. Normalization's really the only coming to mind, right? It's the idea that yes, it's a taboo, but it's not in like a negative light as it once was. Is what I'm getting at. It's kind of like
Well, I have a perfect example.
I'm going to be disowned by my entire community for this. Instead, it's like, oh, cool, I can talk about this really crazy thing that happened to me on the fucking internet.
Yeah.
I have a perfect example of revealing my Dutch identity. Watergeuzen is an old word for sea beggars, who basically poor pirates, no money, just going from port to port, ransacking some ships and some ports, etc. After the Spanish king called basically the nobles of the Netherlands made a plea to the Spanish king, please don't send your army and destroy everything. The response back was, we don't have to listen to you beggars, geuzen. So they took this name and they made it a symbol of pride. We are the beggars. We are for the people. And of course, the Dutch won this engagement and gained independence. So it is now a good name. They are remembered. Those nasty pirates are remembered now as freedom fighters who freed the ports and made possible the independence of the Netherlands. So yes, you can have a bad name become a symbol for heroic liberty, but it's a very difficult one. Of course, people have tried this with faggot, they've tried this with nigger. It hasn't rolled.
Oh god, yet. You just said it, damn it!
Well, you said the N-word.
I have referred.
Get down, Obama. This is Obama.
Oh no.
Well, of course, if you use it, I don't use it as a descriptor. I use it to describe the word itself.
I don't think YouTube's gonna give a shit.
No.
You can just edit it out later. Don't worry.
No, I'm not going to edit it out.
Oh, you fucking edgy boy.
Proper context. I use it in the proper contexts.
Yeah, I know. We're just joking.
Yeah. So you can but I don't think trap has gotten a negative connotation in the last few years. It's a very short time, and I don't think you have to abandon it. Of course, in this video, the argument is given that it always was a negative connotation.
Yeah,
which I disagree with.
I disagree with as well. I think that negative connotation has actually come about due to these activists. I don't think that the negative connotation has always been there. I think that it's like what I've repeated a few times. I feel like the transgender activists want the word to be negative, so they're trying to justify it.
Well, I don't think they. I think, of course, it's too broad of a group to give it any intent. Because there is a genuine history of stereotypical deceiving, and of course it is prudent to be vigilant about these things. But I think it's a little bit misguided, and it is we could do it with a little more communication where the trans activists can realize that this is a new definition. It has really nothing to do with the old ones, and it is a
And
new.
it's more positive as well.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
more positive.
most of the people who use these phrases grew up in a generation where, I mean, that type of thing was just normal. It's like,
Well, of course, there is this case here, which just Padentic Romantic mentioned, is trying to link that it's still negative, but I don't find it proven whatsoever. But of course, there is we can also realize that trap was negative, and that it's still effective and stereotypical as a slur to real people, and that should stop then. Still, but still, trap can be both. You can say the negative connotations. When you use it in the old way, it's bad because it's, reinforcing the stereotypical where people really died and, people getting the gays and stuff.
Yeah.
But you can also say it's now a form of play. It's a descriptor. It's what the viewer does to himself rather than the person.
Ironically, I think that because so few people actually are aware of the term, and because so few people actually even use it or know there's a negative side to using it, they're ironically giving the word more negative power than any other type of slur because you're choosing to contextualize something that is largely informal as being inherently negative, and to codify that in what activist groups consider hate speech. And when you do that, like, you're giving them an extra word to use. This is like giving someone like a gun to shoot you with.
And I think that if we're gonna I'm willing to bet the vast majority of people, if they even do know about the term, they will know of it. They'll even know of it from it's a trap meme or the our trap's gay meme. It'll be one of those two memes. It will not be all of this other shit.
All of the
right?
history, and yeah, of course, and of course,
yeah,
the people
and
who
that,
are the people who are worried about the war, about the word, are worried out of a historical perspective. And of course, and that's why I'm talking a little bit of a conclusion kind of way, but still, I wouldn't fault them for being worried for seeing a word that they recognize as bad and stereotypical and having a reaction to it, condemning it, and it would help instead of being kind of defensive about it. As a anime community, the anime community could try to explain it a little better, and after which we could police those who would use it or reinvigorate the old use.
All right, let's keep going. We're getting there.
Trans people are out to trap you or to trick you directly gets trans people killed, and it gets their killers lighter sentences for doing
Directly.
so. Having a term...
Yeah, that's interesting word usage, right? It directly, right?
Yeah, not proven.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I know we just paused, but it's like, yeah, can't let that slide.
that refers to them literally be trap, and having its origin in a meme warning you that you're about to be tricked spreads that idea, and thus spreads that idea's capacity to lead to direct violence against trans people. Additionally, since you're courteous enough to not want to call trans people traps, using the term to refer to anime characters at all can be an issue. Trans women aren't men, non-binary people aren't men. Those who don't agree with that statement, again, wait your turn for just a moment, please. But the thing is that there's a significant body of textual evidence that multiple of the most popular trap characters are in fact trans. Astolfo is referred to by gender-neutral they-them...
Aha! No. You are fucking wrong. I can prove that you are fucking wrong. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to the Type Moon wiki. No, because I argued with a transgender activist about Astolfo, and I can tell you right fucking now, Astolfo is not trans. And that's bullshit. So let me find it. Well, while I find it, just discuss.
Yeah, like I think this is more of a kind of cultural idea where people are more free to be more feminine or more masculine in whatever way they like. In that sense, well, Japan is more of a kind of traditional in gender roles. They're also a little bit more free in expressing yourself in media, at least.
Okay, the first point is that on the official wiki, right, and the wiki has sources to both the media and such. The gender is classified as male, and question mark requested to be kept a secret by the person themselves with citations. And then if I go to appearance, it says Ryder is a androgynous-looking boy who is fancily dressed, beautiful beyond all compare. He states that his hair ornaments, which seem like something a princess would wear, are an they're proof of a friendship to someone. History. His appearance is contrary to legend of being said handsomest of the 12 peers. Blah 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 blah. I'm looking for the Pacific quote. Okay, his gender and in the service status written as le secret. Okay, here it is. He purposefully dresses as a girl because he likes cute things. Fate Apocrypha material Astolfo page 008 to 009. So it is the canon is that Astolfo is a man that wants to be a man, but
It's also
dresses.
Chad as fuck.
Yes, but dresses the way that they do because they simply like things that are cute. Right? It is not anything to do with gender, and that is canon. That is canon within the show itself. So if Padentic is making the argument that Astolfo is trans simply because the gender is listed as androgynous, which it isn't, right? It's just that they wish it to be kept a secret, right? That's because it's more fun that way. That's a quote from the show itself, right? Then they are factually incorrect, and I want that to be on the record. They are factually incorrect about that.
Yeah, and in Japanese media, there's more, like I said, I'm just repeating myself, more freedom, more acceptance to this kind of type of character, but also this sense that in the end, they conform to either male or female. And of course,
so I want to see if Padentic fucks up here, and does make the argument. I want to see it. So let's go.
Pronouns in the official translation of Fate Grand Order, and their gender is listed as secret in their bio.
You fucked up. You fucked up in your research. You lazy bastard. Because you are factually inaccurate, right? In the show itself, right, in the Fate Apocrypha, like, because she's going off the Grand Order, right, which is essentially the video game where it's like the crossovers between all the different Fate things in one place, right? However, even in Grand Order, right, it's still a man, it's still classified as a man, right, technically, by their own admissions, right? And I would assume that it goes off the canon of the original work, and in the original work, which was Fate Apocrypha, right?
Well,
it is
kind of ironic you say that the Apocrypha canon.
Yeah, Apocrypha canon. Based in the canon, the gender service status is written as Le Secret, so that is with canon. But it is still a male, and they are not trans by their own admission. So you fucked up, Pedantic. Fuck you.
Yeah, if anything, Astolfo is closer to transvestite fetishism, except he doesn't have a sexual, kink about
Well,
it.
just drag. That's enough, I think.
It's just no, yeah. It's just right. It's just the whole justification is the dude just likes looking cute, right? That's the whole thing. There's not even any sexual component to it. It's just the character's preference in clothing, right? So, and this is the thing, right? Are you going to erase identity of that character just to make them trans? Because what do we got on screen right now, right? Fate Go uses they, them for a Starfo status in their profile as per their own request. Fate Apocrypha's profile where Starfo themselves crossed out the gender info. Cis fans, actually, I think he is definitely a boy. So this is what I mean, right? No, you've misinterpreted what because again, they don't want their gender to be known. Because where is the fucking quote? It's on this wiki somewhere, but there is the actual quote where they say, they want it to be kept. His gender, as Le Secret. Yeah, like there was a quote on here. I think it's been edited possibly, but there was a quote that basically said that the character just wants it to be kept a secret because it's more fun that way, right? So there is a element of trickery there, an element of wanting like sort of that trappy kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because they are considered trans. Not everyone that wants to be androgynous is trans. Is my problem here.
Yeah,
right?
If you can take the example of Haruhi in the Oran High School Host Club, who very much identifies as asexual.
Yeah, it's. So let's keep going. Let's see if they continue with this.
Could this simply be coy playfulness from Astolfo? Perhaps, but it seems more...
Yes, it is coy playfulness from fucking Astolfo, because he says it himself! You fuckwit! God damn it! You're making me mad!
Are you okay?
She can't hear you.
I'm
His
so mad!
His entire personality is playful too, so it...
His entire personality is based off this shit! This makes me so mad because you're so wrong! How can one person be so wrong? God damn it! God, because I argued with this person on Twitter about this, and when I pointed all this out, they literally just said, oh, you're actually right. That's okay, I'm sorry, I'll retract my statement. Because they said, like...
Was it all before or after this video?
It was. I don't actually know because I think it was after this video,
right.
possibly. So perhaps this person that I argued with wasn't this. It wasn't Padentic. It was a random Twitter user, right? So perhaps this person watched this video and you spread this misinformation. You fucking goddamn it! Right, I gotta get past this shit or we're not gonna get in.
Likely to be that Astolfo is
See, the phrase trap does lead to
Astolfo is not non-binary!
X-gender. There's also the ever-popular Felix from Zero, who is an even more clear-cut case.
Okay, in this case, I'm not as familiar with the source material, so I'm not.
Suddenly, all the anger disappears.
Yeah, suddenly I'm deflated now. Fucking, it's because it's something I don't care. I don't watch ReZero, so I don't care. But from what I understand, there is a possibility that in ReZero there is the case to be made, but I would have to look more into it. I don't know the source material.
Well, as far as I know, remember Felix here identifies as male.
Yeah, so let's see where they go.
In a spin-off novel written by the same author of the main series,
in a spin-off novel
that focuses on Felix and Krush, Felix says that she wants to be called Ferris, says to herself that she is, quote, a girlish young woman, a wonderful and cute girl. And the novel also says that while her girlishness is borrowed, it should have belonged to her to begin with. Ferris
All right.
is undeniably a trans girl. She takes on a new feminine name, calls herself a girl,
Debatable.
and then the third-person narrator of the novel says that she should have been born a girl, that she should have
Yeah.
had that femininity to begin with.
Sure.
If you think it's inaccurate and mean-spirited to call trans people traps, to call people who do
Well,
not
just
identify as
pause
men
1
by
second.
a term that refers to men.
So, but still, Felix identifies as male.
I mean, here's the thing, right? If it's a spin-off novel by the same, let's, for the charitable sake of argument, it's canon, right?
Yeah,
They said
it
these
pretty,
things, right?
pretty much is, I would assume.
Yeah, and let's also assume that the translation and the localization has not fucked with it, because we actually have to worry about that now in modern day.
Well,
because
this novel
fucking goddamn it.
existed, of course, for a little while now, and I think it would be made
Yeah,
before
probably.
all this stuff. So
Probably, but again, it's a possibility that must be considered. I am willing to agree that Astolfo was probably not Astolfo. Fucking, I see, I'm fucking still
Felix.
on Astolfo now. Felix, I'm willing to concede the point that Felix is probably more trans than most. Right? I would be willing to give that ground, right? Because based off that canon work, you can make that argument.
well,
So
I disagree with that. In that Felix identifies as a male. The comments by the narrator and other people saying that this femininity is so strong, he probably should have been a female instead, isn't any indication of it's the wrong body, really, in the sense that Felix is uncomfortable with it in any way.
That's a good point.
I mean,
So,
I'm going to call back to Haruhi again from Odo High School Host Club. She dresses very androgynously. Androgynously. I said it wrong, but anyway.
It's a hard word. Don't worry.
Yeah. And you could say that she was born to be that way without any real characteristics either way. Still, she thinks of herself really not either female or male. So, but she doesn't reject herself as being female gendered. So she also isn't transsexual. Would you say that in Mariaholic Maria dresses up as a girl and acts very much as a girl and knows all the tricks and secrets to be a female? You could say she puts more of an effort in it than Haruhi. And you could argue for it that therefore because Maria engages.
Mariaholic, though, wasn't it the case that he lost the bet with his sister? Because his sister in that show attends the male school.
I think it was something of a inheritance thing.
Either an inheritance or he lost the bet. It was one of the two. It's been years since I watched Mariaholic.
Yeah, but the point is more that if you want to say that Felix's femininity makes him trans or in the wrong body, then is somebody who doesn't really put any effort in at all. Maria then?
Padentic just cites a very brief quote that seems kind of out of context, I guess.
I think it has enough context, but I fear that it isn't enough simply because Padentic is ignoring the fact how the character identifies himself to begin with.
Well, I've never read the ReZero novel, so this is just kind of, we're going to have to take Padentic at his word.
Yeah. I'm more familiar with Fate Fate lore, I guess. Because the thing of me and Fate is I don't actually watch a lot of it. I just really like the lore. I really like learning about the history and what people are based off and all that kind of shit. So I'm not
I kind of gave up after
like
after
I don't.
Fate Go became big, because then I just kind of
Yeah, like I don't.
This
play
isn't
Fate.
about how I hate how what Fate has become. That's
Yeah,
not
like
what this
yeah,
is
yeah.
about.
Like I don't. The reason I get so mad about the Astolfo thing is just more because they're just factually like like all I had to do was go onto the official Type Moon wiki, which I'll actually link in case you want to add that as like a source to the video to prove that I'm right. Like, is just go to that website and just scroll down to appearance, and it literally says right there. It just says right there they like to dress because they like cute things. Purposefully dresses that way because they like cute things. Gender and the service status is less secret, right?
And that's kind of the problem too, because of that lack of research, or maybe it was just willful ignorance. How are we supposed to take
yeah, exactly,
like
like
of the examples?
Yeah, like I'm gonna like don't prescribe to stupidity. Like don't inscribe ill intent to what you can prescribe to. What's the fucking word? Like don't assume malice what you can explain with stupidity, right? So if we apply that to this, we can just assume that Pedantic just didn't do proper research and just found research that backed up their conclusion, which would be that Astolfo is trans because traps are trans, right? But it's contradictory to the source material and the canon and the character itself, and that's what pisses me off. Because if you're gonna make a video like this, you've got to have your shit together.
Well,
right?
if she misinterprets misinterprets stated context like that, then how can you even trust the stated context of or something that's unstated or more nuanced with something like Lily or Felix or Ferris? I never read Zero. I don't read garbage.
How dare you?
All right. We've got like 5 minutes left, so let's.
Oh my god, we still have 5 minutes left. Fuck me.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's keep going.
And calling anime characters traps is always going to be a risk. This is because that within a group of characters who were born as boys and want to look androgynous or like girls, you'll end up getting a decent number of trans characters, because being born as a boy and wanting to look like a girl is what trans girls experience. In Lost Pause's trap video, he calls Poison, who has breasts and who, according to the developers, is even post-op in the Western versions, a trap, along with Mariandel, another trans anime character who also already has breasts even. Beyond just being the generally anti-funny and unwatchable tripe one expects from Noble.
You got a penis! No! Sorry, guys! You guys got screwed! Oh, no!
Extra funny.
Okay. Make note of the fact that this is a video from 2015. I'm not gonna comment on Lost. Like, I don't watch the dude, and I don't like his style of comedy, and I'm not really into it, so it's not for me.
No,
so I'm
he
not
made
really
two nice virtual YouTuber videos.
Yeah, he makes good. He does make good content from what I can tell, but I'm just not super into him. But like, make note of the fact that we're responding to a video that was from like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Which we can't assume is a serious video. It's possible that he's playing it up for laughs, right? Like, it's not like he's trying to make a serious point. Like the title of the video in itself is "The Trap Game. Would you tap that?" Right?
Very serious content.
So
yeah, like,
I just want to point out something he said. Apparently, in the Western version of Street Fighter 4, one of the characters is post-op.
Yeah, Poison.
Yes, I can go back to that quote actually. Let me just.
Well, I think.
But no, like, was that something that was deliberately changed?
Yeah.
In the Western version,
Why?
why?
A group of characters who were born as boys, and a character who is what trans girls experience. In Lost Pause's trap video, he calls Poison,
I'll wait for
who
the
has
quote to
breasts and who.
Okay. We can put the rumors to rest. In North America, Poison is officially a post-op transsexual.
Well, this is a case of different, where Japan is like lags a little bit in the progressive area, where Poison is still really fully male, kind of, in Japan, because that is what Japanese like better.
So, and I don't really see. Again, here's the thing, right? I would have to like, when was it officially stated, right? What's the timeline here? Did Lost Pause put out his video before the statement was made or after the statement?
Well, still, Poison was Poison was
Yeah.
regarded as a transsexual long before this video.
Yeah. True, but it's kind of like it just feels, because what she's accusing him of here is blatantly calling Poison a trap, when before this was official, before it was officially said, it always used to be kind of like androgynous as to whether or not the localization had made it a female, right? So it wasn't cut and dry until it was officially stated that it was a transsexual.
Well, I disagree.
So,
I disagree here, because in the very first Street Fighter that came over in America, Poison's character was changed from female to transsexual, because otherwise we would be beating up a female, and that would be bad.
okay, yeah.
So
I don't know the full history. This is
So basically, the history
slash what I've seen.
Yeah, so the history is basically Poison female in Japan, America male with basically a female sprite, because otherwise you would be beating up a
Right. That makes sense.
and
yeah,
after some time, the maleness of the American version got transported back to Japan, and now in Japan it's a male with female looking female, and in America it's a operation, post operation.
okay.
But why just Poison? Like, why just specifically Poison? Because there are other female characters in Street Fighter.
But this was the first, basically. The first female character in Street Fighter was turned male to reduce the controversy of beating up a female.
Oh, so this was like in the very, very first one. Like, I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
this character was something that was like, you know, because I don't remember this character in like Alpha 3 or whatever.
Right. So,
Weird.
getting back to it, I'm unsure as to what the point of bringing up Lost Pause's video is.
Well, the point
because
is that the word trap has a wider usage and people use it wrong.
Yeah, but
No,
the thing is
the point-
it's very clear from looking at this video that's being presented that it is a joke video and not a serious.
Point of
video.
bringing this up is the same point as bringing up David Duke using the word trap earlier, and it's the same point of berating people at the very beginning about this. He's intentionally casting any opposition automatically in a negative light, or she. I don't know what pedantic is.
It's gonna be a meme.
I doubt anybody's going to watch this shit, but if I ever get hate mail, please tell me which it is.
You can direct your hate mail to 555-555.
You can direct your hate mail to @lollydominatrix at discord.com.
What's your number?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh,
But anyway.
scared.
Number is 4673. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Alright, but so yeah, I think that let's see what continues from this Lost Pause thing.
According to the developers, is even post-op in the Western versions a trap, along with Mariandel. Another trans anime character who also already has breasts even.
I know
Beyond just
nothing
being
about that
the
character.
generally anti-funny and unwatchable tripe one expects from Noble,
You got a penis. Oh, no. Sorry, guys. You guys got screwed. Oh,
Super
no.
funny.
this video demonstrates very clearly the issues that the term has when it comes to the boundaries of transness and trappedness. Thankfully, as I mentioned way back at the start, the Japanese fandom already has terms for these characters, so if you need a trap alternative, we can look to those. Joso is a more general term that comes from combining the kanji for woman with the kanji for wearing, to create a term that basically means wearing woman. So Joso is the act of dressing up like a woman and acting the part, basically the act of presenting as female. Joso is a subculture engaged in by cis guys, cross-dressing, and trans people alike, so more accurately covers the full spectrum of characters that we in the West would call traps. For anyone scoffing at the notion of using a Japanese term to describe this stuff, feeling it would be less intuitive and more unwieldy, I'd like to remind you of the existence of tsundere. Basically, everyone in the anime community understands what it means, and it describes a character archetype that's grounded enough in a Japanese cultural and media context.
Yes, and everyone understands the context of the word trap as well.
Yeah, now, well, of course, here's the example. I don't think it's a very convincing example, but the example given by Lost Pause here is that people use the word wrong. But I also just would say that people use the word tsundere wrong. I don't think it's a compelling argument.
Yeah, me neither.
Text that no American term would work nearly as well to accurately describe it. For replacing trap in a porn
Bipolar.
and porn tag context, otoko no ko serves better. The term began as an amateur porn genre, and Oshimi Kaoru, one of the main figures who helped popularize it, has said that trans women were important to that community's formation. It's the fetish...
Didn't like 10 minutes ago Padentic say that these words were not direct correlations to the word trap? Like literally fucking 10 minutes ago. I swear to Christ they said that.
Well, there was 10 minutes ago, 2 hours ago now.
Yeah, like no, but that's what I mean. Like, didn't they literally say that you can't use these words as direct like replacements for the word trap?
It was slightly different. What I remembered was that trap isn't the same as the Japanese meaning, because it is a Western product, and I counter that it is a encapsulation of a Japanese concept transported into a more American Western world sense, which by coincidence has some negative historical meanings. And yeah, the Japanese words, Japan has its own words that describe the same thing. So I disagree. Well, so the point of diversion
You're
is...
still referring to the same thing.
Yeah, the
just
point
changing the
where...
word because he doesn't like the word.
Yeah, but the difference here is that Padentic says here that trap is a Western-made thing, and therefore very different from the Japanese things. But whenever we invoke trap, we mean these Japanese concepts, so why not use the Japanese words? But it's a little bit, this goes both ways. Trap apparently encapsulates enough of the Japanese meaning to be understood that way. But Padentic argues that it isn't enough because people use it wrong, and I don't think that people using it
I don't
wrong...
think that's valid.
Maybe he's trying to get David Duke to use the phrase Tokonoko again as a targeted psyop. That's my headcanon right now.
Oh man, I can't wait till we get to that fucking Goblin Slayer video sometime because it's gonna be great. Alright, let's keep going.
Subset of Joso, and as such, you shouldn't call a person or character an otoko no ko simply because they're doing Joso. But okay, you've waited your turns patiently, so now it's finally time that I start jerking you off, oh hardline trap users. Sorry, but there isn't much to say other than yeah, if you hate trans people, of course there's no real reason for you to not use the anti-trans people slur. That's sorta how slurs work.
Ooh,
As I
poisoning
laid
the
out-
well. Yeah, you can go on, but it's very much poisoning the well.
Yeah.
Everybody who disagrees with me is banned.
So I know I actually know several trans people, or I know two people I'm close to, or at least have had a relationship or rather a friendship with or whatever at some point that were trans. One of them is unfortunately no longer with us,
Damn.
but he used the word trap even long after he started HRT. I say he, but he was male to female. It's just like he never brought. It's complicated. And the other person who's also, a bit of a weeaboo, also still uses the word trap to this day. It's again like he's making this argument that you automatically have to hate it to continue using it, and like there's a deeper context to that.
And how if you presented, because there are plenty of trans people that use the word trap, hell, there's fucking trans people on Twitter that describe themselves as trap. When you propose that to Romantic, are we going to get the whole internalized transphobia? Fucking.
That's probably That's probably what it's gonna be, because I mean,
what other argument can you have, right? Like whatever, how else would you counter that?
This person already just seems to like one-to-one interpret anything that's processed as aligning immediately with his worldview. Like,
all right, let's keep going.
The term has no grounding in Japanese.
Can I?
Oh yep. Oh yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah.
Did I forget it? Trans people bad. Yeah, like I said in the beginning, and maybe the beginning will be cut out because we talked garbage for a few minutes. But
probably,
I said in the beginning, traps don't exist. By calling everybody who could be trans, or everybody who is who all traps trans, you come into these issues where Alfosto is pretty much male, Felix, to the best of my knowledge, identifies as male. You call those trans, and that really just is a muddies and make the word trans very, very broad. But also, people who call themselves trans apparently don't identify with the word. Did I say that right? The people who identify with the word trap don't identify with the word trans. Are you going to say those people don't exist, that our identity is invalid?
Well, clearly this is a case of what's the phrase? Cultural appropriation. Clearly.
No, identity erasure.
Yeah, I think it's more a case. It's identity erasure, because you're essentially saying that the identity of trap should not exist because some people use it in a certain way that you don't like, even though the vast majority of use cases are within a positive framework, and people seem to like the term, and people seem to be okay with calling themselves it. So I don't see how the world should bend to this particular worldview. Yeah, it's. But anyway, we're almost there. 4 minutes.
Yeah.
We're gonna last 4 more minutes. We're getting close. So let's get going.
Continue.
They've got their own terminology for this kind of stuff. So maybe a few of you hardcore essentialists might not want to use trap for that reason, but otherwise, duh. If you're an online far-right mimetic anime fan, using trap is naturally something you'll do.
That's fake.
Not something I...
Mimetic?
That's
you hear that, everybody who is far right? He is giving you your go phrase. Your go phrase when you start is trap.
Oh,
the moment
man.
Pedantic drops the word trap casually, that's when you need to know that it's time to rise up.
I fucking love that term, mimetic, like memes, right? Like you're like using memes, right? Conspiracy, right? Like you have to be far right to like memes. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
You have to be far right to use this meme. Again, he's poisoning the well.
Yeah, it's like, what are you on about? But anyway, let's keep
can
going.
really change. If you're a transphobe, you've already written me off, and I've already written you off. Just how this sort of stuff works.
Great engagement with the audience.
I guess I'm a... it's that meme of, I guess I'll die now. It's like, I guess I'm a transphobe then. Because I like factual videos. Yeah, I guess. Fucking. Alright.
Who's made it to this point in the video now knows the history of the term trap, why enforcing a trans-friendly definition of the term flies in the face of basic linguistics, how its use as a derogatory term for trans people is far too widespread and mainstreamed at this point to try to assert that it isn't a slur, why the prominence of trans characters among those considered traps makes the term one that is tough to use accurately, and which terms can serve as solid alternatives in their respective appropriate contexts, while as a bonus being more accurate to how Japan views these characters. As a result of its origin, the term trap doesn't really define anything concrete. Its definition is so fluid and contradictory, encompassing multiple distinct Japanese subcultures into one Frankensteinish creation, and as such, I don't think any character can be described by it particularly accurately. Now, as with just about any slur, people of the group targeted by it are free to use it. If any trans people find
Whoa.
This literally is the word. This is literally is the N-word for them.
Yeah, this is what I was right. What the fuck?
So
it's okay. It's okay for trans people to call themselves traps, but not okay for us. What are you? Am I drunk? Am I high?
Here's the thing that Pedantic's trying to do. He's subtly telling all of the far righters who are about to begin the uprising that they need to disguise themselves. They need to disguise themselves and infiltrate the trans community and refer to themselves as traps to identify each other. It's like a code phrase. This is a code phrase so everyone knows who not to shoot.
I'm dying now.
I'm sorry, but every time, ever since you mentioned that thing at the beginning, I am headcanoning that this person is actually.
How can you not?
It's like so perfect.
But let's try and finish this.
Yeah.
Empowerment through personally reclaiming the term or identify with it, it's no one's place to take that away from them. Hopefully they'll be understanding of how other trans people might be made uncomfortable by it, and thus not throw it out there willy-nilly. But in turn, others should be understanding of them. Just know that if you identify with characters like Ferris or Astolfo, you don't have to identify as a trap to do so. You can also simply identify with what they are. Trans.
They're not trans!
With that out of the way, though, that's just about everything I've got to say on this topic. So now I can link this video in response to questions about it forevermore. Firstly, a big thank you.
Alright. How many minutes did we save?
Okay, now here's the other brilliant thing about having the people who are infiltrating identify as a trap. The people who are clearly uncomfortable visibly, you can identify them as opposition. Holy shit. the actual... This is some high-level psyops you don't understand. I'm gonna have to, have a cork board with strings.
I'm just fucking... How can one person be so wrong? Is my response right now.
Well, the right thing was that the Japanese term are more precise in their definitions and usage. People use the word trap wrong, but of course, people use the word futa wrong, even in Japan. So
yeah,
who cares about that?
And that brings another question: are futa trans?
No, they're hermaphrodites.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Is it
intersex?
Yeah, intersex would be the correct term, but
I fucking hate this shit so much.
Well, intersex as a term has a lot more legitimacy because it is a physical thing, and it's not. I have.
It's very real. Yeah, it is real, but it's very real. It's very rare.
It's very unfortunate too because it's
very
less,
unfortunate. Yeah.
It's less of a hey look I have a.
Oh look hey I have both. It's more like oh fuck I have both. This is fucking bad.
It's less I have both versions that are completely perfect and more please nail my ballroom Sako Nichi.
Yeah, it's not. It's yeah. But anyway, let's do some closing. Thoughts. My closing thought is do better research, you fucking idiot. Because yeah, I want that Astolfo rant to be cut out and made into its own video because I was generally fucked off by that because I was so mad at just how fucking pedantic was because it doesn't take a lot of research to look these things up if you're going to be making the argument, right? So other than that, I think that the overarching feeling is that you just a video to try and reinforce people that already agree. They already came to the conclusion before the video even started, and rather than trying to use the method to form the conclusion, they were trying to use the method to like form it into the conclusion, right? Rather than like accept the outcome, right? They'd already developed the outcome and working backwards. I feel like in terms of the whole trap thing, I think that yeah, just because people are using the word wrong doesn't mean that we should abandon the word and we should stop using the word. I think that we should continue to use the word in the positive connotations in order to outweigh the people that are using it in the negative. And I feel like giving having the negative exist to giving people the okay to use the negative. So, for example, reinforcing the negative by making a big deal out of it, I think is counterproductive. Because I would rather have one less negative word exist than have, like I'd rather have one less negative word exist than have one positive word that can be used negatively, right? So rather than having a solid 100% negative word, which is what these people seem to want, they want the word to be the N word. They want it to be that one negative word that will never.
Oh yeah, no, Pedantic
change.
wants it to be. Pedantic wants to be, or this entire video, if I, as a proud Antifa activist, this entire video is actually a massive dog whistle, because it's telling the far right that they need to start using the word traps to verbally attack trans people. That is what Pedantic is doing right here.
The thing is, you're joking, but it's almost like that's a interpretation of what it could be.
That's my interpretation. That is my headcanon. It's much more.
So I think the video was not good. I was not impressed. But yeah, I'll let the scientific man go now.
Oh, scientific man. Yeah, I didn't have a really good opportunity to flex my intellectual knowledge, because I did some reading. I did a little bit of reading on transgender, transsexual, and all these issues in Japan and in the more wider world. And in the end, except for a little bit of history on the male female performers who made careers out of being female, yeah, there wasn't much discussion about what is a trap character and how is it different from other types, because immediately from the start all trap characters are made to fit into the trans brand. And yeah, and if you frame everything with your conclusion, yeah, then you got a pretty nice conclusion, but was it ever going to be anything different? Because that's my biggest problem, really. It's fine if you have a conclusion at the start, but if you frame everything within your conclusion, is it really a investigation? Is it really a search? Is it really presenting different views and coming to a conclusion? I don't think that really happened here.
Oh yeah, no, this entire thing was just a read. Or, I mean, he said at the beginning, you've probably written me off if you're not convinced, or like this entire thing wasn't to convince anybody. It was backpadding.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's not really a whole lot of like it's mostly just explanation and then just drawing the point from the explanation. I felt like. Yeah, it's not the best. I'm certainly not convinced, and I'm certainly going to continue to use the word trap, and I'm certainly not going to consider Astolfo fucking trans. That's for fucking sure.
I'll use it when talking about a 2D character, but like, I don't even call like in real like. Okay, first of all, I think the entire idea of labeling yourself like this is really stupid. But I understand why it happened. I just never really got it. But no, with trans people in real life, I usually just refer to them by whatever they tell me, that like whatever, like either they'll say something or like it'll, like it's never been a problem with me.
Yeah, like you just
Like
sort
I'm
of
not gonna be a dick, and if somebody clearly is bothered by
unlike
being.
unlike how people like Pedantic think, it turns out that human beings are individuals that all have their individual personalities and individual things they wish to be or wish not to be called. So I personally feel like if a trans person came to me and was like, "Hey, can you refer to me as this?" I'll probably be like, "Yeah, yeah, all right, sure. I'll call you whatever X is, right? Like
Free fucking country.
don't yeah, don't really give a shit, right? Whatever. So I think that if like it's yeah, I think that erasing the identity of Trap and just making Traps trans is really counterproductive. I think that we should allow the idea, because again, not all traps are trans, right? You can be a trap and be trans at the same time, but it's not like it's mutually exclusive. Like you can have different subcategories within that are different things. So I think that it's
I think, and I'll say this, I was joking about this, but yeah, no, I 100% think that giving people, or just universally or considering something like this a slur, is just going to empower people who are looking to just be assholes to transsexual people. Like, I really, that's my honest take on it. Like, unlike something like the phrase, like the N word, like, this doesn't have, or the N word, or, I'm Hispanic so I can say this, or like the word spick, it doesn't have a negative history attached to it. It has more or less a playful history to it. So I think the fact that you're equating it to unfortunate crimes where people do get killed over stuff like this, I think it's just empowering people who just want to be assholes. So it's yeah.
Yeah, and of course you can make, and I don't think just because a word is a descriptor and a slur means you should ban the word entirely. Just like liberal is a slur to a vast majority of people, it shouldn't be banned from its use of a political leaning.
I think that it's too, for this. Like, if this had been something that had this been a phrase like tranny that had gone back like 50 or however long, then yeah, maybe I would agree that that's a bit that'd be a
yeah, tranny is a good example, but
this is a very new term, and it feels like assigning it to be a slur now is just surrendering the entire. Again, it's like handing somebody a handgun. You're surrendering the term to be a slur. Because there is the fact that there are people that argue over this means that not everybody agrees on the fact that it's a slur. And I'm sorry, but I don't think half the, or not even half, I don't think a majority of the anime fandom, considering the ages of them, care if somebody's transsexual or not. I mean, most of them were around my age, and most of them grew up when stuff like Will and Grace was on television, which, that show did a lot for making, that show now would be considered derogatory because it kind of, it's jokingly talking about gay culture, but at the time it was one of those things that really had people, really lent people to, especially in the US, we're a Puritan country, it made people more comfortable with the idea of gay people. It was one of those shows that was kind of a step forward for people. And I kind of think that the phrase trap is the same thing. I think it's made people more comfortable with somebody who might be.
I think it was someone on Twitter who made the point that the word trap has done more to help trans and LGBT representation and acceptance than the entirety of the LGBT activisms combined.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit much, of course. Because
I
I-
wouldn't go
I-
that far, but
I think even as a joke, somewhat agree with that. Just
Yeah.
because it's rather than it being forced, because that's what the activists are doing now, right? Back in the day, you wouldn't make that argument, but now, in terms of like modern day context, I feel like it has, because it's done more to give people an idea of being able to accept the concept of liking something of the opposite gender that looks like the gender you're attracted to, rather than like having that forced on you by an activist and them going, well, if you don't call me by my pronouns, you get thrown in jail, right? I feel like stuff like the transgender lobbies and such are doing more to harm than they are good, and I think stuff like the trap stuff is doing more to help than it is to harm, and people have got it backwards.
you don't give people words that they can take underground with them in discussions. That's really the yeah, and that's kind of the thing, and why suppressing speech is really dangerous. It's because you drag people. People will still talk about these things, even if it's illegal or even if it's completely censored. They'll just talk about it in spaces where other people can't comment on it. So you'll never have that moment where somebody might come in and make a very good point about something.
But anyway, I think we've pretty much gone to the end of talk about in terms of this video. I think this has been a pretty good discussion, though. I think we did pretty good on this one.
Yeah, how we enlightened some people if this ever gets shown to more than 2 people.
Yeah.
Have you even finished editing the first one?
It's done. I haven't uploaded it at the time of this recording.
Well,
it's not like we have a deadline or anything.
No. Maybe I'll save up like 2 episodes and I'll release it at every third. So with
we can have a backlog. Yeah.
Yeah, of 2 maybe. If this ever becomes a